sold 200 tickets in a couple of hours.
Yeah, that's great. People are hungry. There's no doubt of that.
People are starving.
Yeah.
People cried for Petaw. Literally, people cried just to sit there 20 feet away and hear him live.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm doing a fair amount of crying right now too.
We'll be both, bro.
Okay, here we go, guys. We are live. Let me start by thanking everybody for just tuning into this special roundtable discussion. We're here looking at the effects of COVID-19 on the music and comedy scenes right here in St. Louis. And I have this incredible panel lined up with a lot of unpacking to do regarding where we are and where we are headed. Is everybody ready?
I think so.
Yep.
Well, let's start with just a who's who of this particular panel. I want you guys to each very briefly just introduce yourselves, who you are and who you're with. Let's start with you, my old friend, Chris Hansen.
How you doing? Thanks for having us, Kevin. It's
Good. Thank you.
My name's Chris Hansen. I'm the executive director of the Kransberg Arts Foundation, and it's an honor to be with everybody today. Thank you.
Another old friend, Pat Hagin.
This is going to be a lot of fun, I think. Looking forward. I am the managing partner of the Pageant and Delmar Hall, and previously, a long time ago, ran Mississippi Nights.
Yes.
Good old days, the good old days. How about you, John Henry?
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm a talent buyer at Off Broadway music venue, the Open Highway Music Festival, and as an artist, just with my name, John Henry, my band.
Exactly. All right, Paige Alyssa, you're up.
Yeah, I'm Paige Alyssa, singer, songwriter, producer, arranger.
Very good, very good. And finally, last but not least, Rafe Williams.
Hello, thanks for having me, man.
Hey.
It's good to see
Thank
you. I
you.
know some of you, others I don't, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm Rafe Williams, St. Louis comedian and plus size male model. So join my OnlyFans if you want to see me putting on triple XL booty shorts.
Obviously, Rafe is the comedian of the guy group. We're going to start with actually Rafe Williams because he has to head out shortly after this. He has his first gig in 4 months is tonight, shortly after. I know, right? His gig is tonight. He'll be jumping off this Zoom and onto a stage in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So tell me what's going through your head, Rafe? Again, it's your first gig in 4 months, your first I can't even say post-COVID because it's still happening very much, but your first pandemic gig. What does that look like, man? What's that feel like for you?
You know, I don't know yet. The club seems like they're taking all the proper precautions. I'm not trying to cast dispersions on the city of Tulsa. It doesn't strike me as the hotbed of scientific of scientific belief, but I'm hoping that, you know, when they pitched me the show, it seems like they're taking all the proper precautions, and it is a canary in a coal mine situation. I might have a very different opinion after this weekend and be like, nah, we got to sit this out for a while longer. But I'm nervous, man. Honestly, like it's the most nervous I've been before a gig in a long time, just from.
What part of it are you nervous about, right? What part of it makes you most nervous?
It feels weird. I mean, if I had to relate it, it's like, you know, the tune of your songs, but do you remember all the lyrics? I'm sure to relate it to music, it's like, I haven't sang that song in a while. I know how it goes, but I'm like, I know what my jokes are about, but I'm in my own head where I'm like, man, I haven't, you know, that muscle memory hopefully will come back pretty quickly, but we'll see.
For you to say you're nervous is really striking because I've seen you on stage, man, so many times, and you're such a natural at this. So I just can't imagine Rafe Williams on stage nervous. That doesn't even sound. That didn't even gel for me.
I'm hoping that goes away. I hope it's like that first laugh, it kind of falls away and things will be back to normal. But we'll see. You might see it on YouTube. Comedian eats it for the first time. 1 million views.
Hopefully we don't see that video. But Rafe, you're a veteran at Helium nightclub. You've been voted St. Louis's most funniest person put on by Helium nightclub. They recently reopened about a month ago to regular shows. They're jam-packed with bookings. It's socially distanced shows they have going on at Helium. I know you've been there. I've been there. I've seen your partner there. She was there the first night that they reopened.
Yeah. Tony,
Tell us
great.
about Helium and what they're doing in terms of them being able to have concerts these days.
Well, it seems like it actually went better than I thought. Pat was kind of talking about it before we got on, and I agree with him. Like, there is a disconnect. I've seen a lot of people trying to force stand-up comedy or improv, or you try to force something that is meant to be experienced live and has a communal relationship between an audience and an artist, and trying to shoehorn it into this Zoom format.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just some diminishing returns on that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, or
Sure.
you know, you got to do what you got to do while we're having this pandemic. But I think that like it went a lot better than I thought. Like, they took a lot of tables out. They made sure there was 6 feet, so it didn't feel like, even though they were seating at like 30% capacity, it didn't feel like a big cavernous empty room, because you know that place seats 300 or 400 people.
Right.
So to put 60 people in a 300 seat room in comedy, especially, like, it's good to have people kind of tight. Laughter's infectious, no pun intended, in the COVID-19 world, but it is like, it very much is like, the closer people are to you and together, it tends to get bigger laughs. So definitely felt that a little bit, because everyone had their own little private island of comedy viewing going on. But the people that were there were been cooped up. They were there to have a good time. So I think the people that are coming out, you know, they're ready to see a show and they're ready to have a good time. So
do you feel like overall it's working, what's going on there at Helium with these shows?
So far, yeah, they've taken, I mean, you know, they've done everything they can do to minimize risk. I think if you're going to go out and see a show, you have to accept that, like, it's riskier than staying home no matter what. But their staff, they were letting people order from their phones. They were only, you know, having one server per party. They were seating people. They didn't have their bar open, so they were kind of bringing people in. Here's your table that you reserve. They were only selling tickets in twos, threes, and fours.
Okay.
So they could kind of isolate parties. So really the only interaction you have is with the wait staff. They were wearing masks and gloves. So yeah, I felt, and then as an artist, they kept us separate. We didn't have to go do meet and greets and stuff if you didn't want to.
Okay.
So it felt like they were doing everything they could possibly do to make people feel safe, make the artists feel protected. So I was happy with it.
So when can we look forward to you doing your gig at Helium in this new climate? I mean, you take your first gig back all the way in Tulsa.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It just kind of depends. The Helium weekends are like, you know, that's an A-list room. They get a lot of big comics off. I'm small potatoes there, but they might throw a Sunday night my way one of these days. So it'll be whenever, because Dan Soder was in town. And I actually did a couple small guest sets because he's a friend. And but right now, a lot of comics are traveling with people.
Oh, okay.
Just to minimize that, like, working with another comedian that they don't have any idea if I've been quarantining or what I've been doing. So like when Dan came, he brought his own opener that is like a producer on his podcast that he's been having daily contact with, and so that might be going on for a while. So you know.
I got you. Okay, and I'd be remiss, Ray, if I didn't ask you about your new comedy album, Young Grandpa. Tell us a little bit about that and how have you been able to promote it in this particular climate?
I don't know. I think it caused this whole thing. My year started off great, and it really took a dive, man. Like, I've been a lifelong Chiefs fan. My first comedy album came out in January. Chiefs won the Super Bowl. I was riding high. My album was selling good, doing good on Pandora and Spotify. And then about March 7th, I was in DC, Washington, DC, promoting it. And they were like, you better get on a plane and head home. Ever since then. But it's been doing well. I hate to say that, but it's been doing really well because people are at home. I mean, Netflix, I think people found the end of Netflix, which is weird. People are like, I didn't know it ended. It ended. I found the end of it. And now I have to do something else. So they've been downloading and listening to my album. And I felt really supported. A lot of people have reached out, you know, and I think that's a lot, probably the live streams with music. I know we were talking about that beforehand, but I think a lot of it's just people wanting to help out artists, you know, like I've had people Venmo me money and just be like, hey, I listened to it on Spotify for free, but it was awesome. And here's $10 if it helps. So that's been, you know, I think genuinely people are kind and they want to like support art. So that's awesome.
And then finally, Rafe, have you been doing any live streaming comedy bits on Facebook or any social media platforms?
Yes. I've tried to keep it minimal. Like for the reasons I said earlier, I've been trying not to shoehorn stand up into a format that's not meant for stand up. I've done some improv stuff where it was like we did a fake Zoom meeting for a company called Make a Mammal that was like a Build-A-Bear's failing competition. And like I think if you make something that fits into this format, it can work really well. As opposed to like trying to like shoehorn in comedy that's either meant to be experienced live or, you know, even doing sketch. So I've done a few podcasts have worked really well because they're kind of set up for that.
Okay.
And some improv shows where the rules are kind of laid out for you, like you're playing this character. We are doing a fake Zoom meeting for, you know, for a product or something like that. Those have been really fun. And then I've done a couple that weren't, and they did not feel good. I'll be honest with you. I did not. I hit leave meeting and just sat there in the silence for a minute. Like, I don't think that went well.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. Man, I want to thank you for being here, man, and honoring this Zoom when you have a gig that's like 10 minutes from now, whatever. So I really appreciate you being here and giving us that insight, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I'm sorry that I have to leave. I want to hear everyone else's.
It's okay.
I'll log on and watch the rest of this. So don't talk trash about me when I leave, or I'll find out.
Have a great show, man.
Yeah, it was good seeing everybody. Good. Thanks a lot.
Pat Hagin with the pageant with Delmar. I miss having these shows at my fingertips to go to every night of the week, man. And I got to ask you, first of all, if you can just kind of talk about what your venues are doing to kind of stay in front of fans as best you can during this particular period.
Well, we're trying to be as upfront as possible, and you know, we're not hiding anything. It's rough. A lot of shows have kind of gone through a tumbleweed effect of, you know, postpone. We've had a number of shows that have postponed a certain date, and now have had to postpone again, and maybe even one or two that are postponing even further.
No,
so
I know.
that takes a lot of effort on my box office staff and also on our marketing team to keep people posted there. But yeah, it's interesting. None of us, no matter how old we are, and I'm probably the senior, I'm sure I'm the senior person here, never seen anything like this. I don't think any of our parents or you know, saw it. Maybe some of our grandparents saw it back in 1918, but this is strange.
No, and one thing I've seen you all do regularly now that I really enjoy is you take a St. Louis performer, you put them on the pageant stage, and you live stream them as part of you all's new live stream concert series where they're performing to an empty house, and it's live streamed around the country and around the world. Can you kind of talk about that series and how successful it's been?
Yeah, that kind of came about because of 201 Productions, which is the live streaming company, and they're actually the video team for Fish, but they're based out of St. Louis, not really well known to this point in St. Louis because they don't do much in St. Louis, but they're sitting around with all this equipment and also a little bit of financial help from Four Hands. Four Hands has been great. And so we've, you know, managed to pay all of the acts really a little bit of money just to perform. And they're also anxious to perform. And these are like 8-10 camera shoots. I mean, this is really pro stuff. It looks great. And I've got really very little to do with it other than making the venue available.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have to say, I've seen the live streams, and when you mention that they're pro shot, man, they are really pro shot. They look incredible. What kind of feedback, Pat, have you guys been getting about these live streams?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, directly from the artists performing, it's like, oh God, thank God we get to play. Because it's been tough for them. You know, we're trying to stay engaged with our fans and with the artist fans so that, you know, they know we're here and that we're trying to do what we can. I don't know that the average person understands how devastating this is for our industry, everyone on this chat's industry in particular. We're going to be the last ones to come out of this, and primarily because what we do is we have large crowds close together, and that's what all of us work for and hope for. The artist works for that. That's what makes the world go round for all of us, and it's going to be a while, but we'll get there eventually.
Do you feel like with the climate being what it is now, Pat, that these live streams is probably the most and best that the venues can do right now, venues of your size?
Yeah, I don't think we're at the point yet where we're going to feel comfortable, where the artist is going to feel comfortable, or where our staff is going to feel comfortable having a house full of people. The artists, they primarily travel in incubators on wheels called tour buses. So they want to be very careful. They don't want to take anything back to their family or spread it to a fellow tech or a musician. The staff doesn't want to be exposed to that. And the big question that I think all of us probably have is, even when this starts to ease up a little bit, how is the public going to react? There are some people, and I think there are some genres of music where people don't really care that much and they'll go out. But there are large chunks of our industry where the consumer is going to be really kind of hesitant just to jump right back into it. I think that will eventually pass. I don't know how long that will take, and I am afraid that perhaps there is a social reworking of people's habits that might surprise us down the road. I hope not. I hope things do eventually go back to the way they were exactly. But is there going to be some residue from this that is going to tamp down the audience?
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So Pat, will the live stream concert series continue throughout the summer and into the fall, do you think, in foreseeable future?
We've got a number of conflicts and competing priorities in August, so we're going to be taking a break in August, and then we're talking about bringing it back perhaps after Labor Day, once we get a better feel on things. And I think all of us would like to believe that towards the end of the year we can start doing some business again, but we really don't know.
We really don't know. And Pat, it hasn't gotten past me that this October will be the 20th anniversary of the pageant.
Happy anniversary!
I'm just wondering, what is that going to look like for you guys turning 20, and what was it going to look like prior to the pandemic? I wonder as well.
Well, amazingly enough, as of today, which is the middle of summer, we're doing the exact same amount of business that we were doing 20 years ago to this date, which is nothing. So our actual anniversary day is the, depending upon how you look at it, our opening party was the 19th with Chuck.
Remember, I was there.
Yep. And then the 20th of October was our actual first day. So we're almost certainly gonna miss that. But we will try to tie in the 20th anniversary banner across shows going all the way probably till October of 21, depending upon when we can start putting.
Why not? As you should, man. As you should. Yeah. Chris. So Chris, you've had huge plans for 2020, of course, Chris. There was everything from the St. Louis Music Initiative, Music at the Intersection, St. Louis Music Week. There were a lot of big things planned for 2020. Can you kind of break down what those plans were for those who weren't so as familiar with it as I am, and just kind of what happened to them?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, we did. We had we had a lot of momentum around celebrating St. Louis's music heritage. We built a number of wonderful work groups and committees and brought artists and industry together across sectors. to celebrate our musical footprint. And we had a big festival planned for Grand Center venues and indoor, outdoor. Had a big marketing campaign planned for St. Louis Music Week, where we're going to throw a tint over the whole city and just, call to action audiences and celebrate venues and artists. And we had to put that all on pause. The good news is we've still continued to keep a cohort of music industry professionals across government, nonprofit, traditional industry, managers, lawyers, booking agents, artists, to work on a music economy work group. So we're still doing the data mapping and the music economy mapping right now, and trying to build some plans and set some goals for how we can respond and react in these times and start to align resources, affect policy. But the physical form of a festival is postponed until next year. It didn't seem prudent and appropriate to be promoting and advocating for people to go places. So Music Week is kind of on a freeze. And, what we did do is maintain the integrity of those contracts and those artists. We went ahead and made offers and to over 40 local acts that are going to be on that bill for next year, so that they had that hope, had a way to see some deposits coming in. And we just stayed committed to the process and building rapport with the agencies, and just keeping it online with no assumptions about what's going to happen next. So it's been really interesting, and that's just one piece of what we've been working on. But to see a stage that we had at the Dark Room go from 7 nights a week to no nights a week, where you're employing hundreds and hundreds of bands a year that are part of the arts ecology, that are part of the fabric of a blue collar musician, that are out there every day paying their bills by playing in St. Louis. And I think that's the most devastating part for me. The festival was a first-year festival. It had a lot to prove. It had yet to really make an investment greatly into St. Louis, and St. Louis had yet to benefit from it. But I worry greatly, and we focus our work right now on the local musicians and the local gig economy to figure out what we need to do next. But it's been interesting times. I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing, and people coming together to build smart plans. We have a Missouri Art Safety Alliance coming together to try to build some guidelines and roadmaps to get people back into rooms at an appropriate time and make safe spaces. But it's a tough time to be a leader. Nobody wants this on your watch, and it's an impossible time to give definite answers, which is the hardest thing in leadership, to not be able to tell people, yes, we're doing something. So it's what it is for all of us, right? It's very difficult.
Chris, how are you feeling about 2021 and what that will look like for concert going? What's your gut telling you about 2021?
I'm just taking everything in these phased, step-by-step approaches. Right now, I see outdoor, while we have this window, as an opportunity in small groups, in very highly mitigated procedures and policies. We know, and we've tested through survey and done a couple of events outside to see if the artists are ready or the audience is ready. How does our staff feel about it? And we do know there's a demand, both from the artists, that with good procedures and policies and small gatherings, we can do a lot to tamper down on the risk, but there still is risk. And we're seeing people really value and want to participate in their local arts economy and music economy. And we were blown away at how many people wanted to come out to hear a jazz trio. I mean, we only had 50 seatings and not 50 seats for 2 seatings per night. So only 200 seats available, but they were gone in a few days.
Where was that? What venue was it?
That was July 3rd and 4th under a tent. We happened to own a tent and have the gear, so we brought it all outside. And I wouldn't say that just any promoter could pop up and have all that infrastructure available, but we got a lot of venues. So we took it all outside and put all hands on deck. Had Pete Williams play one night and Carlos Brown Jr. play the next night. Both bands had trios. People paid to sit down. They did a food and beverage minimum. They did everything online before they got there. There was a whole tip field for the artist. I think, you know, I don't want to say how much the artist made, but they did really well that night.
Okay.
They did really well that night. And it was a mix of a good guarantee. And that all came from people saying, hey, I'll pay without even knowing who it is. I'll pay to sit down and hear music. That was encouraging. And I think it's a great opportunity for local musicians to level set with their audiences and the people they do business with in venues and figure out that new path forward, because they have less opportunities right now. So every opportunity has to mean more. And I think we all have to be prepared to support that and put structures in place that allow them to thrive, you know, when they do get out on the stage. I mean, seeing Gary Sykes and Daryl Mixon and Pete-Aw, I mean, I just wanted to put a big bubble around them. You know, I mean, these are jazz giants. This is the best in the world. And so we did everything to keep everyone away from them. And, you know, at the end of the day, they felt good, you know, and that's what mattered to us.
Chris, are you like Pat, where when it comes to venues like the Dark Room and the Grandel, where you really don't know when you'd be able to like open those doors again for people to come in and sit down and enjoy a concert, even from a social distance standpoint?
Yeah, we're real trepidatious. We were real quick to roll it out before we were told to, and we're going to be real slow to bring it back. The venues, you know, right now, you know, and I know the county and the city have a little different methodology, but there are no fixed seat venues that have gotten the license and permission yet. That's fixed seats, you know, the proscenium theaters. Okay. No one's gotten the permission yet to bring public back into them. Some of the standing room places have gotten permission because, you know, they figured out a different guideline for them. But right now we're working with Dr. Eccles and Linda Martinez, and we have this Missouri Art Safety Alliance that's submitting some guidelines to them for how to get theaters back in motion. But it's going to be a slow roll. I could see us having very small gatherings with very small ensembles with impossible margins and impossible procedures. You know, that's the other part of this, that you might be able to do it, but you can't make the money work. If you're banking on tickets, you can't make the money work. So, you know, we're a nonprofit, you know, privately held foundation. We do it for a different reason. So we might be more motivated to help somebody else try to meet that and figure it out with them. But yeah, I think it's going to be a slow push back. And right now, I don't see it happening in this calendar year.
And then one more thing, Chris, I've seen you guys do something that's been really cool, where I've seen you guys go into your archives and pull out some classic performances and make those available for the first time to your patrons. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we've been doing these, the live from the archives. We're going to continue to do those, and just, you know, going through years of documenting great St. Louis musicians and, you know, lifting that back up for everyone to see. And that was really meaningful. I mean, people were tipping through that platform. Artists, you know, had a way, if they didn't have video content or good audio, to, you know, still stay in front of their audiences. And we're going to continue that. But we're actually going to announce a new outdoor open air concert series.
Sure. Breaking news. Scoop.
So starting in the top of August through the end of October, we're going to do local jazz and you know, of every kind of subgenre that you can think of, a touch of blues, a touch of soul in there. And we're going to work to do that same thing that we did a couple weeks ago every weekend.
Okay.
Under a tent outside, maybe 50 people out of max can be there. Everybody's socially distant, lots of contactless opportunities, really strict protocols. And we're going to try to get bands that are ready and willing to get back on stage. We're going to try to get them a payday. And right now we're planning on doing that through the end of October, and we'll have bigger announcements here in the next week or so.
Gotcha. Count me in. I will be there. I'm looking forward to that, Chris. Paige, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm just hanging out.
So everybody, Paige Alyssa, she's from St. Louis. She moved away to LA to do her thing out there for a while. Then she came back to St. Louis to reconquer the scene here. You got back here, Paige, around the top of the year. And then shortly afterwards, as you were trying to ease your way back into the scene, COVID happens. and change everything. Tell me what's going through your head.
I mean, so I got back in town. I released my single, What's the Move, in March. And like I shot the last big thing I did with my band was when we shot our Tiny Desk submission at Shock City. And then like it was like a week after that, everything was closed down. So I mean, for me personally, I've been kind of just taking this time to like regroup and like recenter why I do music. Especially because like, this is my first global pandemic, and I have just been trying to, just trying to make it out of this alive, and like just getting back into why I do what I do, and like the reason why I'm a musician, and like trying to use my resources and my platform to help other people who may not be as in as good as a position that like I might be in right now.
Have you been able to write and or record during this particular period?
I haven't really been writing a whole lot because it's been hard, like with everything going on, especially like between COVID and like, the Black Lives Matter movement picking up. That's also been a huge thing too. Like the first performance I had during the pandemic was a fundraiser to raise money for Black and brown queer and trans folks for QT STL. So like that was the first gig that I did, was like for a fundraiser in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. So like,
so let's talk about that gig, Paige. How did that gig work? Tell me about that gig.
It was really dope. So me and my friend Tim Moore, I basically put out a call to action on my Facebook, and I was like, okay, if you all need Paige Alyssa to sing at a movement event, I'm available pro bono. And also like, what else can we do? And so I just like, my friend Tim Moore reached out to me, and we put together Juneteenth Jam. I reached out to Shock City, and they gave their venue they donated their venue and their engineers to us for the cause. So my friend Sam Mall worked it. You showed up for Limited too. It was fun.
I did. I had to see it. I had to see some people live for a change.
Yeah, it was cool. Like, the community raised $5,000 for QT Pop. So like that was really dope. And like the way I planned it, I just had really, really specific guidelines. Shock City had guidelines, like, it's a big complex. So folks were able to be socially distant. Everybody got their temperature taken in. And then like, I just made it, the performers were like, if you come in, please, like, leave as soon as you can. Granted, like we hadn't seen each other in a long time. So like a lot of us ended up just kind of hanging out, but like,
it was tough.
Yeah, and like, if we did hang out, it was socially distant, but it was just, everyone had masks on, everyone kind of sat in different places, and then the Shock City crew would come in and clean up every mic, everything after it got played on. So like, we try to be as precautious as possible, especially because like the whole lineup was like Black artists, and I try to take into account like, social and economic resources that a lot of artists that look like me have access to or don't have access to. Sure. And so that's something that's also really important to me too. It's just like the general well-being of our community.
And shortly after that, Paige, you were involved in a second gig. It wasn't your gig, but you were a part of Trey G's gig, which was called a new virtual festival called Work Fest.
Yes.
Work, WERQ Fest. Talk about that a little bit, if you would.
That was really, really fun. It was at the Grandel Theater, and I felt comfortable being there. Again, like since all this started, like live stream shows, with as much as I love singing in front of an audience, like right now, I feel the most comfortable doing like a lot of live stream stuff. Because when it's a live stream thing that's happening, like WorkFest came in, my temperature was taken, everyone had to sign in. And like, if you weren't on the check-in list, like you had to send who was going to be coming with you. Like those are the only people permitted into the theater. Then everybody had their own section to sit at. So like I had my own booth with my team, and like, so on and so forth. It just ran super smooth. And it was another instance again of the community coming together to provide a platform for like, Black and brown queer artists to perform during, Pride Month, and to perform during a pandemic. And to also, again, to raise money again for another group that's marginalized in the United States. So,
are you looking for more opportunities like this, Paige, more live streaming opportunities around town?
Yeah, no, I would love to do that. In fact, I haven't confirmed it yet, but some other folks just reached out to me for another live stream. So like, there'll probably be more details to come on that pretty soon. But I like the live stream format right now personally, because again, like, me singing, like my body this is my artwork. and like COVID is an upper respiratory disease. So like if I'm out singing or like just out kicking it with a bunch of groups, like if I'm lucky enough to survive it, what are the odds that like I'm gonna have damage to my lungs for the rest of my life and like I can't sing? And so like these are all things that I'm taking into account. And again, like it's having this in conjunction with like the Black Lives Matter movement has been something that like I've been thinking a lot about too. Again, it's like I'm a part of a demographic that has been affected the most by it in the United States. I'm a freelance musician, so I do not have health insurance. And so like, it basically, like I see myself as every time I walk out my door, I'm taking a risk. Like I'm risking my life in some shape or form. And so like, if I'm gonna go out there and risk my life, then like I have to make sure that I'm safe and like, you know, being able to take care of myself and be compensated in a way that's gonna reflect me risking my life to sing, essentially.
Yeah. Pat, I need you and Paige to get to know each other a little bit if you don't already.
Yeah, I don't think we've met, but yeah, I'd love to.
Okay.
Definitely.
John Henry, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. All things considered, man. So let's talk about how things are going at Off Broadway since March and since everything's been going down. John, what's the situation been like at Off Broadway, and how have you guys been able to keep in front of fans during this particular period, if you've been able to at all?
Yeah, we have our tissues ready. So you know, I mean, at first, you know, when it first became apparent and we had the day where a million shows started to cancel, we were unsure, like everybody, when it would be appropriate to reschedule. So we just went with essentially the next touring cycle. And now we're dealing with, you know, pushing those further into the year. We've done a little bit of local outside shows that have been cool. We've had a couple nights where we functioned just as a bar outside in the courtyard. But primarily we have been just trying to navigate all of these shows and putting them in later in the year. Like everyone here, we missed out on a big quarter and 2 quarters, 3 quarters, maybe a fourth, and just trying to reschedule it and be as safe as we can and as smart as we can be about reopening and what we can do.
Man, what has that process even been like, having just to reschedule all these shows? There's postponement after postponement after postponement and rescheduling and cancellations. How are you juggling all that, man?
We did our best to make it really upfront, like I guess echoing what Pat said. I mean, we refunded people if they wanted refunds. If they wanted to keep it to the postponed date, they could do that as well. For the most part, everybody's been really understanding, and the same goes with a lot of the agents and managers that we've had to move things with or do a different deal or whatever it would be. But for the most part, people have been really understanding and really cool with everything. I haven't had a whole lot of conflict with that. We're all just kind of sitting around waiting for when we can do things again. So,
John, have you guys considered artists live streaming from Off Broadway stage? Has that been something that's been talked about?
Yeah, we have, and we've tried a few different live streams through where artists would essentially promote it through our channels as well. And what we found was at different times the viewership wasn't necessarily as high as we'd want it to be to make it worth all the extra effort. So we have been posting some content, but for now, just focusing on local outdoor events and local indoor shows whenever we can. But that's actually the tricky part too, is because if they say, you know, you can do a quarter capacity or you can do half capacity, even with social distancing, those two things aren't possible. You know, we can only have so many people in a small room, and at that point financially it becomes hard to put a show on or you know, worth the effort in a sense. So just waiting.
And I know, John, over at Off Broadway, I know the Open Highway Festival is one of the biggest and most popular things you guys do over there. And I think that should be happening around now, usually.
In August.
What's the status of those shows? So
we were able to salvage 5 out of 8, and we are just scheduling those throughout the very tail end of 2020 and into 2021.
Oh,
so
okay.
5 out of the 8 were salvaged, and the rest didn't work routing wise or tour wise or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
So,
and John, what's your gut telling you in terms of when things might return to some semblance of normalcy, you think?
I have a hard time, and I hate saying this, but I have a hard time seeing indoor shows at anywhere near full capacity in 2020. I know just as much as anybody else. I just, the X factor being once you even say you're open, I don't know how people's attitudes are going to be towards wanting to go out again and how excited they're going to be. I know some people will, but I think you'll have a lot of people who are a lot more cautious, and I think that is a factor that we don't really know what it will be. So it's a tough one to judge.
And John, I know you yourself, you have a new EP ready to roll.
Yeah.
I think you were supposed to have your EP release party just last weekend, was it?
Yeah, it's coming up. Yeah, it was supposed to be next weekend.
Next
with
weekend? Okay.
with the Sleepy Rubies, but we're pushing that back. And I had tour Europe for the early 2021 that had to get pushed, and another source of income that I have is I put songs at times in movies and commercials, and that's been shut down too. So it's like all three streams of income have been down. I mean, it's a lot of people have it worse, but it's weird when your industry is just shut down.
It's unprecedented. What's the title of that EP that you have coming out?
It's called Out at Sea.
Out at Sea. Do you know when you might drop it?
Yeah, I think
John?
we're gonna put it out in August with
August.
press. That's when that'll all go, and then we're for a release show we're still to be determined. So
you'll put it out with or without
we're gonna put it out just as a release and then do a show later. Okay.
We got just a few quick questions from our readers, from our viewers. I'm going to throw out there to whoever wants to take it. One question: how much longer can the small venue hold out in this particular climate before it falls by the wayside and we no longer have it?
Define smaller. What'd
you say, Pat?
I mean, off Broadway is right around 400, if I'm not mistaken, right, John?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Delmar Hall 750, the Pageant's 2,000. So
people are wondering how much longer can it sustain itself in this climate?
It's tough for us. I can imagine how hard it is for John and Steve over at Off Broadway.
Yeah, I mean it's tricky. Steve, the owner, handles all that. I know that he's been fortunate with a little bit of the government help, as I've been, but that's running out soon, so that's going to present another challenge. But I think that you have a whole group of factors, but it's going to be, you can do whatever capacity you can. You can only actually do the amount of people that can safely be distanced within your venue, and that gets to be a very small number. So I can't give you an exact date, but we want to survive this, and we're going to survive this. So I just hope it comes sooner rather than later.
And Chris, I'd imagine your venues might be in a different scenario because of the foundation. Is that accurate to say, or not accurate?
But yeah, I mean, our scenario is greatly different than everybody else's, but it's, we support over 40 arts organizations that use our spaces as their primary home for presentation. We do that through a mixed use model. So we already subsidize all their space. So we're holding 500,000 square feet with no earned revenue, right? So our models of special events or food and beverage around events, there's nothing coming in. So everything for us right now, we have some commercial tenants that are still able to pay a little bit. We've already deployed over almost $250,000 out directly to artists in the gig economy and workers. And we're shouldering the operations of all this space, waiting for it to come back. So we're doing that because of our model, because of the generosity of our trustees. But it's taxing, and we've had to reduce, all of our seasonal labor couldn't come back. All those part-time workers that only work around the shows couldn't come back. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's different, but it's still all out, right? It's not a lot coming in, it's all out. So it isn't really different. Maybe our ability to last and weather this might be different than a small venue. But you know, the struggle and the loss of opportunity and revenue is the same across the board. And, you know, I think it's got to be, and it also depends on how you hold your buildings. Do you own them? Are they paid for? You know, do you have rent? It just depends on the structure of your business, how nimble you are, how big you are. I think a lot of the smaller venues with smaller teams, you know, that maybe own their own building and can kind of hunker down and don't have a lot of overhead just to sit and hold, they'll do a lot better than rooms, you know, like ours or Pat's that are holding a lot more staff and a lot more structure that they've got to keep afloat. So I worry a lot about our production partners, you know, the technical teams out there like Logic and others. I mean, they have taken a pounding. And yeah, so yeah, I think it's tough all around, and nobody gets out of this unscathed. And in our industry, and I'll speak broadly to the arts, you know, is the thing that we lost both, you know, as an industry financially, but it's what the public has lost in having art and culture in their life. I'm hoping this resets us around the value of that. Helps people understand what we really bring to the table as an economy, as an industry, and as something that is like air and water. You know, this is what we've lost, is our ability to breathe and feel and have the sensation of what culture brings to us. So it's devastating for everybody.
Yes, that's so deep, man. Yeah. One other question from a viewer, paraphrase question. So obviously right now it's blazing hot. We're in the middle of the summertime. Before we know it, it'll be fall, it'll be winter, it'll be cold. At that point, what are we looking at? Because the outdoor opportunities, which are safer, obviously, won't be available. So what happens once the weather turns on us and the outdoor options are no longer available?
You got to follow the science. You got to stay with science. We got a great pandemic task force locally. We're very, very fortunate to have Dr. Garza in the pandemic task force, you know, leading a lot of this. We need to listen to them. When they tell us we can take a step forward, take a half a step and move slower than they're telling you can move, but don't walk ahead of them. And when it comes to indoor spaces, I'm going to listen to them. I'm not excited about any of it personally. You know, I'm not excited to open up an indoor venue. I got permission. I could have the dark room open right now. We could have on stages. We could be selling food and beverage right now indoors. I think it's absolutely insane to try to do that right now, you know, for the safety of the artist, the staff, the patron. They're kind of accepting the risk. I can keep them safe, you know, and I can mitigate that in a way, but your staff and those artists, that's a different dynamic. And they're showing up because of their livelihood. The patron's showing up for their enjoyment most of the time. So I'm more concerned about the staff and the artist. And when we can get that right, then I'll feel good about getting things back open indoors.
Paige and John, either of you in a rush to get back out there onto the stage and do your thing?
I mean, for me, like I said, I like the live stream format. Like, I'm really cool doing that, but I'm really not like in a huge rush to get out and sing. Like I said, like I want everybody to be safe. I want everybody to make it through this thing healthy, you know? And like, of course I miss singing. Like I miss singing in front of an audience. That's my bread and butter, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's such an important part of my livelihood. And just like me as like a human, you know, but I also like, I want to be able, if I have to sit down for like a year and not sing so I don't get COVID or I don't get sick, so I can continue singing the rest of my life, then like, I'm okay with taking a year off so I can continue singing until like, you know.
Interesting. How about you, John, on that point?
Yeah, I share the same view. When it's safe to do it, it's safe to do it. And before anything, it has to be, are we keeping people safe? And that's been the frustrating thing about this whole thing, one of many, but the fact that I feel like a lot of people are making this a lot harder than it has to be. I mean, it's just, you just need to do a basic, inventory of what it means to be a good citizen, and just listen to what doctors are telling you. And when they, I believe them, I do, I don't think it needs to be this hard. So.
And finally, any words of encouragement, any bright lights anyone would like to share as we exit this incredible panel and discussion right here? Anything? Let's end it on a brighter note. Yeah. Who has that? Who all has that?
I mean, I would say as an artist, like it's been really cool seeing the community come together to support other artists in the community. So that's been really dope. The fact that, Jazz St. Louis is doing live streaming, Pageant's doing live streaming. It's like, Chris, like you're taking like the artists into account before doing anything major, and like making sure if they're like outside playing that they're being compensated. Like, I think that's been really cool, seeing the community step up and the art community step up in a way that's like really meaningful to artists out here. So like, that's one thing to look forward to. I think moving forward, when we are able to be in spaces together, it's like, having that value of the arts and values of ourselves as like people in a community. I think that's going to be the one thing that we carry into this. That's going to be really helpful for us moving forward into the future, and us holding each other up when when we don't have anything else. So that's been really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're going to come out of this stronger. It's painful. It's extremely painful.
Yes.
But once we get on the other side of it, everybody gets a little bit relaxed in what they're doing. But going through this, coming out of it, I think everyone will have a newfound appreciation, and not just us as artists and venues, but also the public. I think will really grab hold of it. Once we get through it, we just have to hang on.
Chris and John, final words?
Feel the same. Yeah, we'll be back. It's going to happen again. It just might take longer than what people want, but it's for their safety and their own good. So.
And when it comes back, it's going to be a boom. It's going to be a rush back to this stuff. And this is what people are missing and need the most. So I think when we get back to it, I think we're all going to be plenty busy, and I'm encouraged by being with all of you, and I'm also encouraged by the fact that we're going to use this moment to change some stuff. So that's all right with me too. If we got to slow down a little bit to fix it, let's do that.
Gonna be a boom. I love that. I love that you said that. Thank you guys so much for participating in this. Paige Alyssa, Chris Hansen, John Henry, Patrick Hagin, and Rafe Williams, who had to leave early to hit the stage, the live stage, actually. Good luck, Rafe, on that. Again, guys, thank you for being here, and I hope to see you sooner rather than later. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.